If you are excited for the 2023 NFL season, then like today's video. We've got updates on roster cuts. 7 players, as we sit here filming so far, have been cut. But we're going to begin today's show with the latest on a possible Jonathan Taylor trade. The Dalvin Cook rumors go out. Jonathan Taylor trade rumors come in and continue to stay here. We begin with the update from this morning from Stephen Holder, who is a Colts beat reporter. Do keep that sourcing in mind. He says that talks continue, and as expected, this will go down to the wire. The Colts deadline, by the way, is on Tuesday. One tidbit. I believe there to be a second team involved beyond the Dolphins, which would certainly change the dynamics. Now, this has been mentioned by others, including Josina Anderson, saying there's a second team involved. Who is the second team? Nobody knows. It's a mystery team. It's just like baseball trades where these two teams are involved, so is a third. Is there actually a mystery team? Or is this just the Colts trying to gain more leverage to get the Dolphins to make the offer that they want? I'm unconvinced. There have been 5 teams with varying degrees of credibility behind the reports linked to Jonathan Taylor. The Rams were mentioned, a team that had called, not made an offer. The Eagles were mentioned as well, but they also have Rashad Penny and DeAndre Swift. I don't know if I buy that there. The Bears are allegedly out. Denver was mentioned, but they've been kind of mentioned a lot alongside backs, despite Javonte Williams being healthy. Now, I have no doubts that there is interest here from the Dolphins side. We know that they have made offers to the Colts for Taylor. But much like the Dalvin Cook situation where there was interest, it has to be on the Dolphins' terms. I don't think Miami views themselves as a team in desperate, dire straits of having to add a running back to this organization, that they have to go get somebody. But when a good player becomes available, or a top 5 player at their position, the Dolphins have interest. So I do think there is a very real possibility that in 24-ish hours, give or take, Jonathan Taylor ends up being a Miami Dolphin. I also don't know if there's another team desperately involved, which means this might come down to, in the end, would the Colts take the best offer from the Dolphins, or would the Colts have to have it on their terms as well? So the pinned comment and more conversation coming here on JT. What is the % chance the Dolphins elect to trade for Jonathan Taylor? Sound off for me at the pinned comment, especially if the ad comes here on YouTube right now. Now, we've gone over this asking price before. It merits mentioning again. The Dolphins have not offered a first-round pick for Jonathan Taylor, or even the equivalent compensation of a first-round pick, of like a second and a bunch more, or a second and a player, or whatever. The Colts want a first-rounder. I don't think they're going to get that. I wouldn't be even that opposed to or surprised if, in the event the Dolphins offered a second or a third or whatever, if the Colts say, you know what, this relationship has turned into a dumpster fire, let's take it and move on. Now, because the Dolphins have made an offer to the Colts for Taylor, that is a very clear sign to me that they are on board, and whether behind the scenes or not, have agreed to the asking price contract-wise for Taylor. Now, I don't know exactly what that is. There's some wide gaps between the highest paid backs we'll get into here in a little bit, but having made the offer makes me think they're open to paying him something along the lines of what he wants. Now, what he wants is still unknown. Does he want $16 million per year? That's the Christian McCaffrey deal, who also is worth mentioning as a potential comparable trade value, which is second, a third, and a bunch of other day 3 picks involved to get him to San Francisco, which was a bad deal for Carolina with the contract, but hey, they got picks out of it at least. Alvin Kamara, $15 million. Derrick Henry, Nick Chubb, just over 12 and a half, somewhere in that range. Josh Jacobs got 11.8 on a 1-year deal. Now, in general, which might not apply to running backs in the same way, the general rule of thumb, if you look at like various descending contracts or backloaded contracts, every year you add $2 more million per year. So could you get to a 3 or 4 year, $13-14 million ask from JT? It's possible. But what really matters here for the running backs in particular these days is guaranteed money. How much of your contract is guaranteed? Because if you can easily do a 5-year, $16.5 million deal for Jonathan Taylor, but if only 2 years of that contract are guaranteed, and you're only guaranteed about $20 million bucks, he might not want that. That's behind Bijan Robinson. He might want more of the $25, $26, $30 million guaranteed range. And I think that was the big issue for all those guys who had been franchise tagged this past, namely Barkley and Jacobs, in their negotiations. So do you want to trade for Jonathan Taylor? Y for yes, N for no. Sound off in the comment section. Roster cuts to come, but if you want to bet on football this season, do it with our sportsbook partner, BetUS. Chatsports.com/bet. Promo code Dolphins125 gets you a 125% deposit bonus. Dolphins are plus 300 in the event, or to win the AFC East, I should say. Plus 300 to win the AFC East. In the event the Dolphins get JT, maybe those odds jump up a little bit there. You can take some of your deposit bonus money and throw it down on the Dolphins. If they win, you're feeling great and your wallet's in a little bit of better shape. If they don't win, then hey, you're still okay because you have plenty of leftover money. It's BetUS. Promo code Dolphins125 with $100 down gets you the 125% deposit bonus when you go to chatsports.com/bet. All right, the Dolphins have begun their roster cuts as we sit here filming just before 4 p.m. Eastern Time. The moves made so far, 7 of them. Malik Reed, the first one that we'll discuss, the edge rusher. Now, he had some guaranteed money left on his contract. A decent amount of it was guaranteed. He is a vested veteran, so this could be a scenario in which Reed is released. The Dolphins do some of their IR for him because they have a lot of guys they have to do that with there. Then they bring back Malik Reed on a cheap one-year deal. Aubrey Miller also cut. This one's certainly not a surprise. He was behind the other options at inside linebacker. A prime practice squad candidate. I don't think he'll be claimed. Same is true of wide receiver Chris Coleman, who is in the running for probably what would be multiple wide receiver practice squad spots for the Dolphins. Geron Christian, the first of the offensive linemen to be officially reported as released. There will be plenty more there. That one makes sense. Practice squad's a maybe for him too. All right, the defensive line. 3 players have been cut already. Josiah Bronson, which, again, the Dolphins cutting defensive linemen should not surprise anybody. Bronson released. Jalen Twyman has been released, which he could be a practice squad candidate. And then the least surprising cut of all was Jamal Woods, who was brought in mainly just to get through the game they had to play. They didn't have enough bodies up front on the interior of the defensive line. Maybe Brandon Peely makes the 53-man roster. I would not be surprised if waiver claims are made for the Miami Dolphins. Now, roster cut down deadline is tomorrow. We will know all of the moves around or even before 4 p.m. Eastern Time. Make sure you're subbed. We'll have a whole video on it. YouTube.com/Dolphins News. I do want to spend some time to wrap up today's show more in depth on Christian Wilkins. We mentioned him briefly following the news of the Zach Sealer extension, but there's been actual articles going, should the Dolphins trade Christian Wilkins? To which I say, no, don't like that idea. Now, NFL.com mentioned the Dolphins moved to pay Zach Sealer because contract talks with Wilkins had not progressed. And it does sound like there is some fairly significant differences between the Miami Dolphins and between Christian Wilkins in terms of what both sides are looking to do on their deal. So because I believe in democracy, because this is America, you can pick any of your options. One of them I hate, to be clear, and I just made it, it's a trade. Don't pick trade. But what would you do with Christian Wilkins if you were Chris Grier, etc.? T for you trade him, maximize your asset, even though you're trying to win right now. P for pay him, he's great, just get the deal done. Or W for wait and see what happens because he is under contract this year, and I see no way in which he holds out because that's not how the CBA tends to work anymore. I think trading him right now, as I've seen suggested by some, is a horrible idea. The Dolphins have one of the best rosters in the NFL. They are in the midst of a championship caliber window where they want to win football games now. Trading away Christian Wilkins, your best defensive tackle, and I love Zach Sealer. I think it's Wilkins by a pretty good margin, roughly $7 to $8 million per year worth, frankly, if not more, is not a move that helps you win football games. And especially for GM Chris Grier, and if they flame out again, his job might be on the line. I'm not trading away one of the best players. I'll figure out the contract stuff later. and try to win games right now, because winning fixes everything, by the way. Christian Wilkins has been a really good football player. I've seen steady growth each season of his NFL career. I think the lack of sack numbers, because the TFL numbers last 2 years have been really good, guys. Lack of sack numbers might be driving down his value from the Dolphins' offer perspective. But I see deals in which Quinn Williams got $24 million. Jeffrey Simmons got 23.5. Deron Payne, Lawrence got 22.5. If you're building like the run-stopping focused lineman, that's Payne and Lawrence. If I'm Wilkins, I'm looking for a minimum 22.5. And I think that's fair. Because remember, the franchise tag cost also comes into play here. $22.25 million for a defensive end. Now remember, the NFL's dumb. And because they don't label interior defensive linemen versus edges, the franchise tag costs for defensive ends in a 3-4 scheme, defensive tackles in all schemes, and linebackers, i.e. your 3-4 outside linebacker edge rushers, all kind of blur together. So it could be 20.88, the projected cost for a DT, or it could be 22 and change. And you might have a dispute in terms of which one Wilkins should get. But that's the franchise tag cost. Wilkins is staring down at least, we'll round and say $21 million per year, or on a 1-year deal, or free agency, where he can get more. I don't foresee him taking less than that. He has plenty of leverage in those talks. I don't know what the offers are. If Wilkins wants like 25, I understand why Miami's been slow to do it. If Wilkins wants like 22, 23, or even just 21, I think that makes some more sense for the Miami Dolphins. So we will wait and see what else happens. I don't think this is the end of the negotiations, by the way, but it is something worth monitoring as we get closer to the start of the regular season.